Hello everyone, and welcome to another installment of the MoeGamer Podcast. I'm Pete Davison from MoeGamer.net and ricedigital.co.uk and this YouTube channel and various other places on the internet. And I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Chris Caskie of... I always forget your website, ccaskyart.com, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Along with your Instagram accounts, which are... Remind me.
C Caskie Art for my my artwork sharing, and Chris Buys Plastic for my toy and video game photography.
That's the ones. There we go. All right. So, as with the previous few episodes, we've got a fairly sort of unstructured discussion for you today. We're just going to talk about some of the things that we found interesting or noteworthy recently. It'll be a nice casual chat. So, do you want to kick off, Chris? What do you want to talk about today?
Oh, you know what I want to talk about.
It could be one of several things at this point, so go ahead.
I think before we do anything, I've got to vent my enthusiasm over the Armed Fantasia and Penny Blood Kickstarter.
Yes, indeed. So for the unfamiliar, this is an upcoming Kickstarter campaign from the Wild Arms and Shadow Hearts creators for spiritual successors to both of those things, which is very exciting indeed because Wild Arms and Shadow Hearts are both wonderful.
Yes, and they've lied fallow for far too long.
Yep.
I think the last Wild Arms was the strategy game on the PSP.
Is that the one that no one liked?
Yeah, I mean, even I don't really like it, and like Wild Arms is my favorite RPG franchise. Period.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got great stuff going on, but it's just there's some design choices in it that I don't love. Mm-hmm. Soundtrack's a banger, though.
Yeah.
And that's what's great. You know, there's aside from the announcement of the that the Kickstarter will be kicking off on Monday, the 29th of August. There's also an interview on Gematsu with both Akifumi Kaneko of Wild Arms fame and Matsuzo Machida from Shadow Hearts, of walking through their the ethos and the thought process behind doing what they're doing. What they're doing in terms of callbacks to the original works, what they're doing in terms of innovating new stuff. So it's really worth a read if you have the time to look through it. Most importantly, Akifumi Kaneko does confirm that the original Wild Arms composer is going to be back for this new game. So the signature sound of Wild Arms will hopefully be translating through to Armed Fantasia.
Lots of whistling and guitars, yes?
Yes, it's important. It's important. Those games have amazing soundtracks. So yeah, it's just something to be excited about. Not a lot of information because obviously the Kickstarter is not live yet and will be this coming Monday. But obviously no talk of physical editions or any of that shit. But these games are too high profile not to eventually get physical editions.
Yeah, for Kickstarter campaigns like this, one of the rewards is pretty much always a physical version, even if it's just a limited release one, isn't it? So
but even when it's not, in cases like this, the game is too high profile. Someone will pick it up. It's just a matter of patience. So yeah, we'll see. What's curious about this is it's the Kickstarter is for both games. Mm-hmm. It's not two Kickstarters, so it's going to be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah. The sort of commentary I've seen so far kind of suggests that this is more it's more a Kickstarter for sort of gauging interest than necessarily actually gathering the funds that they need.
Yep.
Because it sounds like they're sort of in a position already where they are ready to make these things, and the Kickstarter is just to sort of either make them better or gauge interest for them, or perhaps just attract some attention to them. So.
And we've seen that. I mean, not like it's exactly a successful example of the latter, but that's what Shenmue 3 was. Shenmue 3 already had the sponsorship and backing, but it was a requirement of their publication deal that they do a Kickstarter to gauge interest. So either way, this is marvelous, and I don't envision a version of the future wherein this Kickstarter doesn't well exceed its original goal, because it's like less than $1 million.
No, exactly.
If I had $750,000, I would give
it. Yeah, and I mean, both of these series are so universally loved Like I've seen no negative comments about this at all. Everyone is just like, oh yes, this is amazing, this is brilliant news. So, and I think everyone is just thankful that neither of them are mobile games.
Oh God, yeah. There wasn't there a Wild Arms mobile game a little while ago? No,
possibly. I don't know. I just try not to pay attention to that sort of
thing. I just remember. It's like way back when the Vita was hot. There was that Monster Hunter style game, Soul Sacrifice.
Yeah.
And there were Wild Arms like guest costumes you could unlock in that.
Oh yeah.
And it was the biggest tease on Earth. Because it's like, what? Why? Like it was just, it's the same as when Game Arts did that Monster Hunter style game, Ragnarok Odyssey, I think it was called. Yeah. And there was Grandia guest costumes in it.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we got the HD remasters, but that was such a tease. So yeah, this is really exciting. I try not to get super hype about Kickstarters, but it's really hard not to. Wild Arms is pretty much my favorite game series under Castlevania, so it's big for me.
Yeah. Yeah, well, certainly no complaints from me either. Okay, what did I want to talk about? I've actually got a huge pile of stuff I want to talk about today, so I'm going to try and be selective because there's a lot of it, and maybe I can sort of pick and choose a bit. The first thing I do want to talk about though is one that I mentioned at the end of last time, and I said I would talk about this time, which is Capcom Arcade Stadium 2.
Oh yeah.
Which came out a little while back on everything basically. And it's another collection of Capcom games. The emulation issues that they had with the first one, they've ironed out in both collections now, so they both run really nicely and smoothly on all platforms, including Switch. And it's just a really great collection of games. And Capcom Arcade's second stadium feels like it's placing a bit of an emphasis on some of the slightly more obscure Capcom games. There's a lot of stuff in here that I'd never heard of before.
There's really good stuff in it. It's amazing.
But yeah, this is all stuff that is really, really good. So there's a lot of fighting games in here. Most of which people will have heard of. So it's like got several Darkstalkers games in there. It's got several Street Fighters, as you might expect. It's got Super Gem Fighter Mini Mix, and what else? I'm just booting it up now just so I can check what's actually in it. I haven't really touched most of those yet because I'm not a huge fighting game guy. Although one of the few fighting games that I did get into in my life was the original Street Fighter 2. So I'm hoping some of these Capcom ones will be reasonably accessible, as it were.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I mean, what's all on there? Because I got a bit crossed up lately because there's also the recently released like fighting game collection from Capcom.
Yeah, so the difference between the two is that the Capcom Arcade Stadium is intended pretty much entirely for offline play, whereas the fighting game bundle is for people who want to play these games competitively online. So like they've incorporated proper net play and stuff into the fighting game bundle versions, whereas the ones in Capcom Arcade Stadium are just for people who just want to play them at home, just want to play them against someone in the same room as them. You're not interested in online play and that sort of thing. You just want to play the original arcade games.
So me.
So what we have got. Hold on, I'm going through now. You got Darkstalkers, you got Night Warriors, Street Fighter Alpha. Mega Man The Power Battle.
Oh, that's the SNK developed fighting game. That's amazing.
Yeah. Street Fighter Alpha 2. Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. That's not a fighting game, but it's amazing. Mega Man Power Fighters 2. Vampire Savior. Gem Fighter Mini Mix. Street Fighter Alpha 3. Street Fighter 2. Sorry, Hyper Street Fighter 2, the Anniversary Edition. And I think that's it for the fighting games. But then along with that, you've also got Son, which is the free game that you get without having to pay for it. Savage Bees, also known as X to X's. Gunsmoke, the Speed Rumbler, Hyperdyne Sidearms. What's that one called? My window's in the way. Hold on. Hisatsu Buraiken. I don't know if that's got an English equivalent. Black Tiger, the original Street Fighter, if you want to put yourself through torture. Tiger Road, 1943 Kai, Last Duel, LED Storm, Magic Sword, Three Wonders, King of Dragons, Block, Knights of the Round, Saturday Night Slam Masters, Eco Fighters, Panickies, and that's it. So yeah, there's a huge collection of really great games in here. Like I say, we've talked about this on a few previous podcasts, but it's sort of a long while ago, I used to prefer arcade collections to have stuff that I was already familiar with, but in more recent years, I've really come to love stuff like Taito Legends, where there's more obscure stuff in there that you can discover for the first time, and this collection is great for that, because I've hardly heard of any of these games, and I've tried them for the first time, and they're just great fun.
Yeah, I've been raving about Three Wonders on this podcast for a long time. That's a really fun game.
Yeah, definitely. So one of my favourites is Panickies, which is a compile puzzler. I don't know if you've come across that before. I certainly haven't.
I've heard of it, but I don't think I've ever played it.
It's a bit like Puyo Puyo, but it's different enough from Puyo Puyo to be distinct. It only got a Japanese version, I think. But basically how it works is you drop stuff down from the top of the screen, as you do in most puzzle games, and you connect stuff together. But the difference is there's a sort of vaguely... trying to think what other games were like this. So you have to connect stuff together, but also the connected blocks have to have 2 star blocks in them. Okay. So like you have colored blocks, and some of the colored blocks have got stars on them. And you connect stuff together like you do in Puyo Puyo. It can be any number of coloured blocks as long as there's 2 stars in the combination somewhere. And so that just sort of gives it a slightly different dynamic to Puyo Puyo. Mm-hmm. Just because you can make smaller layouts than you can in Puyo Puyo. But at the same time, you've also got this extra thing to think about that is more than just matching colours. I find it slightly more accessible than Puyo Puyo. I like Puyo Puyo, but it's a game that I'm absolutely terrible at, and I don't really understand how to get good at it either. Whereas Panickies, I found myself picking up quite quickly and feeling like I've got a good understanding of almost right away. So, yeah, I like that one a lot.
So I tried to look up some footage of Panickies, and not knowing how to spell it, I just thought you'd like to be aware that on December 22nd, 2005, anti-Nazi resistance hero Rudolf Pernicki died at age 90.
Oh, okay.
That's what Google is telling me about about Panickies.
Fair enough. Panickies, if you do need to spell it at any point, is spelled P-N-I-C-K-I-E-S. So you probably weren't going to guess that if you didn't already know how to spell it. There's not many words that start with P-N at the beginning.
No.
Anyway. Anyway, it's a great game that I really like. Other highlights that I found, obviously I've already mentioned Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, which is one of the greatest puzzle games of all time.
You can remove the word puzzle from that statement.
Yeah. I had a period in time where I was kind of angry with that game though, because I lived with a housemate who was really good at it and I couldn't win ever, so I just stopped playing it for years. But now that she's gone, I can enjoy it again. But yeah, that's a fantastic game. There's a really nice sort of Arkanoid style game that Capcom did called Block. I hadn't come across before. It's fairly no-frills Arkanoid style breakout with power-ups, but there's loads of different levels. There's sort of 2 different courses through the game that you can take as well. There's a beginner course and an expert course, and some really interesting level designs in that. So yeah, if you're in the mood for some nice bat and ball action, that's a good one. And Eco Fighters, I know that's one that you have some fond memories of.
It's not a favorite, but it's just a very nice example of a Capcom CPS2 era horizontal shmup. It's a good time. And it's not their best from the era. I'm actually more fond of, you said Hyperdyne Sidearms is on there.
Yes.
That one's more my jam out of the other stuff you
enough.
mentioned, because it's a multi-directional horizontal shooter where you are a giant robot and you collect power-ups, and then like the power-ups like put like a cannon on your robot's shoulder and stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, Eco Fighters is interesting because you got this sort of arm thing, haven't you? So you can sort of point that in different directions. And I think there's some of the weapons are kind of almost more set up for kind of melee attacks than shooting attacks as well. So that makes for quite an interesting dynamic that I found. I've not spent a lot of time with it so far, but it is one that sort of stood out to me as being an interesting one that I'd personally not come across before. So
yeah, it's on one of the old Capcom Arcade collections that came out on the PS2 way back when.
Yeah.
So that's where I first got exposed to it. Same thing with a lot of those, a lot of the beat-em-ups you mentioned there. A lot of those are on some of the other Capcom Arcade collections, as well as the belt-scrolling beat-em-up bundle that Capcom released a little while ago. So, I have very fond memories of King of Dragons. That's one of my favorite games of all time. Not because of quality, but just because of nostalgia. And the sprite work is fantastic. Knights of the Round, all those are just worth a check out.
So tell me a bit about your feelings for Three Wonders then, because again, this is one that I hadn't come across before, but you have a lot of enthusiasm for that. So tell me a bit more.
Have you played it yet?
I have, yes.
Okay, yes. So Three Wonders is a unique arcade game where it's actually got three smaller games contained within it. One of which is kind of a Sokoban-style puzzle game where you move blocks around. One of them is a Contra-style run-and-gun, and one of them is a horizontal shmup. And the horizontal shmup and the run-and-gun are cool because they are actually episodic. So one is the sequel to the other.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they both star these two original characters who are like these elves that are kind of like badass elves that like fight with these like rapid fire crossbows. So even though the first game is like a Contra style run and gun, it's a Contra style run and gun that takes place in this weird like badass fantasy world where you're fighting like gnomes and fantasy monsters, and like, instead of running through the jungle blowing up bases, like the first level you're in an enchanted forest and you're running on like giant overgrown roots and branches. And the shmup just kind of continues that, where kind of all the mechanics and the ships and the machines are not like sci-fi, but they're just kind of these like steampunk like Galileo devices with like golden accents and like moon and star motifs, and it's just neither game is specifically anything special from a mechanics standpoint, but they're both just really refreshing in their presentation, and they're solid examples of Capcom's CPS2 board performance, like at its best. Just bright color everywhere, vivid animations. They're fun. They're fun to play, and they have a tremendous amount of personality. And they're kind of forgotten about. They're Capcom ephemera. I think the only other references to Three Wonders I've ever seen in like other Capcom works is there's cards of the two elf guys in the first Card Fighters Clash for the Neo Geo Pocket Color.
Oh, okay.
And they are one of the support summon characters in the first Marvel vs. Capcom.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't think I've ever really seen Capcom acknowledge this game even exists. Yeah, so it's a really good time. It's something I never played in the arcades as a child, but in my early teens, when I was just MAME emulator machine, I would play this all the time, just because I loved the look and the general feel of it, and I loved the idea of a Metal Slug, Contra, etc. style run and gun that was with a unique setting, like a fanciful setting.
Yeah.
So yeah, Three Wonders is definitely worth your time, and I almost argue it's worth picking up the collection for that and Puzzle Fighter together alone. Those are just two of the finest games.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you can actually buy the games individually now, which you can do with the first Capcom Arcade Stadium bundle. So if you don't want the whole bundle, you can just buy those two if you want
excellent.
to, which is nice. I can't remember if there's any word of a physical release on this one yet. There certainly wasn't for the first Capcom Arcade Stadium, which is a bit of a shame. But it's a bundle worth picking up, and I quite like having it digitally because I've got a lot of digital retro games on my Switch, and it's nice to have them all just readily accessible at any time.
Sure.
So yeah,
there was
it's really good.
talk of it. There was talk of it, and like Play Asia had a posting up.
Yeah.
But I think it was just a mock-up, and now if you
Right.
try to like link to it now, it's just 404 not found. It doesn't. The posting's gone.
That's a shame.
I mean, it'd be great if they did them both in like a collection.
Yes.
Know, like,
yeah. And I mean, it's not beyond the realm of possibility because they did a Asian physical of the belt scrolling bundle, didn't they?
Yes, they did. There's an Asian physical, the belt scrolling bundle. Recently, the fighting game collection, and in Japan, Capcom even did like a special edition bundle where you could get the Street Fighter Anniversary collection and the fighting game collection like bundled together with like a nice decorative slipcase.
Oh, okay,
so like,
cool.
There's been support for these kind of emulation sets before from Capcom, so I'm just being patient and hoping maybe we get some kind of bundle with both of them together.
Well, fingers crossed for that. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, in the meantime, if you're happy to go digital, this is a really nice bundle. As I say, there's no online play in it. If you get the PC version, you can use some sort of jury rig solution, like using Parsec, like we tried a little while back to play local games streamed to the other person. So you could theoretically do it that way on PC. But on console, it's a strictly local thing. But there are online leaderboards and there are online challenges as well. So there's things like a single credit score attack mode. There's a time attack mode where you just clear the game as quickly as possible. And there's leaderboards for all those things as well. So they sort of feature different games every week as well. So there's kind of an incentive for the whole community to kind of focus on a few particular games each week and compete against one another. So that's quite nice as well.
Neat.
So yeah, really nice bundle. Okay, over to you. What else would you like to talk about today?
Well, in anticipation, as we sit around waiting for the Hollow Cure update to drop on September 9th, I've been exploring other games in this kind of emergent genre. Because I love when kind of a genre is birthed, and then to see like all the Me Too's coming in and how they innovate and do different things within the space. So I've recently been putting quite a bit of time into Spirit Hunters Infinite Horde, which is another early access game similar to Vampire Survivors. Yeah. I think it's $5 to get the early access version. And it's really been neat to see how it is different from Vampire Survivors and Hollow Cure, how it's similar. So I've really been enjoying exploring that. There's some things that it does better than those other titles. There's some things that it does worse. Most notably is presentation-wise, it's got a bit more of what we would kind of consider more of a professional modern presentation about it. So it's HD 2D graphics, not pixel art. Yeah. Which is obviously a marked change from both Vampire Survivors and Hollow Cure. So it's got HD character graphics and enemy graphics and backgrounds. Really nice, vibrant digital art. Not a lot, not really animation, so to speak. They're just kind of static images, but it's a markedly different approach to the visuals. The other thing that it does, I think that's most notable, is you're severely limited in how many weapons you can have. Okay. So, in Hollow Cure or Vampire Survivors, the items you pick up are stratified into either weapons or like defensive items, like armor or passive bonuses. And you can usually pick, I think, up to, it's like 6 or something.
It's 5 or 6, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's 5 or 6. And then there's also opportunities to evolve those weapons into stronger forms by fusing them with others. In Hollow Cure, a weapon fuses with another weapon. In Vampire Survivors, there are pairings of weapons and defensive items that you have to achieve to get the fusions for the powered-up weapons. To my knowledge, thus far, there is no system in Spirit Hunters for weapon evolution or fusion. It's much more focused, so you can only pick 4 weapons in one run. Right. And then there are defensive passive bonus items in the form of pets that follow you around that you can unlock.
Okay.
But those do not level up with you when you level up in the same way. You have to find another pet in order to level those passive bonuses up. So it's not quite the same thing as the defensive items in the other games. But the big difference is, although you are focused on 4 weapons total, every time you level up, it's very different from what you're used to seeing in things like Vampire Survivors and Hollow Cure, where so you're playing as Gura in Hollow Cure, and you unlock the Whirlpool special ability, right?
Yeah.
And then in the random pull when you level up, it throws you the Whirlpool again, and you can choose to level up the Whirlpool, right? It's one of your options, is to level up the Whirlpool.
Yeah.
In Spirit Hunters, when it rolls for when you level up, you're given 4 options, and all 4 could be one weapon, or it could be 2 of one weapon and 2 of the other, or any combination therein of the 4 you've chosen. But instead of just a simple, like, level this one up to the next level, it's how do you want to level it up?
Right.
Do you want to increase its attack strength? Do you want to increase its area of effect? Do you want to increase its frequency, its damage per second? Or do you want to increase the quantity of them? So instead of it passively leveling up based on the way the weapon just has a path when it levels up, you're choosing how these weapons act as you pursue through the level.
Okay.
So that's been really cool to experiment with and kind of find a build that works. And then within each build, what is more valuable, right? So you've got a mine you can lay, and the mine is the mine is extremely powerful in and of itself. So it doesn't really pay to invest a lot of points into leveling its strength up, but it does pay to invest a ton of points into its area of effect and frequency, so that you're basically just dropping them like every 30 seconds, right? And then you're weaving a path around you. Like, so a lot of interesting space for experimentation, even though the initial 4 weapon limit might seem limiting. And then the other side of that is there's multiple playable characters, and each playable character kind of affects the weapons differently. So they have access to the same pool of weapons, and they do not have special weapons, but like there's a wizard who ties the weapons to health generation. So, there's a 20% chance to heal 10 HP every time this hits, or something like that. But then there's another character who just is fast, so her whole deal is she gets innate bonuses to the DPS on every weapon. So same pool of weapons, but different effects and different performance depending on which of the characters you've chosen,
cool.
Which is really cool. And then the last bit that differs that I like quite a bit is there's a vast skill tree that's shared between all characters.
Okay.
So Vampire Survivors and Hollow Cure, right, they handled updates kind of through that little shop. But in Spirit Hunters, there's a big spider web that's filled with all the weapons and power-ups and extra characters, and you unlock different currencies as you play. There's 3 of them. There's crystals, crystals, I think relics or emblems or something like that, and then there's like red crystals. So you can unlock different you unlock the weapons. Later, further down the web, you can unlock the weapons again to power them up more frequently. And then it's just in the same way you make choices when you level the characters up. You unlock the mine, and then the spider web branches off, and then you can invest further resources in permanent innate upgrades to the DPS, area of effect, etc. of those weapons.
Yeah.
New pets, and what else is really cool is new levels are all unlocked through the web, and then different difficulty variations of those new levels. And it's not
really
just
cool.
Yeah, it's neat, and then not just tied to the abilities and the inherent upgrades, but also you're not just tethered to needing the currency. You also have to unlock like certain hubs that are like the big important hubs by defeating enemies like hunt style. Right. So it'll be like the graveyard level has skeletons. You've got to kill 1,500 skeletons to unlock the next node, or you've got to kill this boss twice before you can unlock the hard difficulty variant of that level.
Okay.
And generally, I've just noticed a broader quantity of levels than any of these other style games I've played.
Yeah.
So there's like regions on a map, and then there's like multiple levels within each region. So like there's the first area is the desert area, and then there's like a desert dunes, and that's the first level. But then you can unlock an area where it's like a desert like bone graveyard, and each area has distinctively different enemies with different behaviors, which then ties into the hunts on the skill tree. You want to keep coming back for more, because there's just always something new to unlock and always something new to see. And the runs are only 15 minutes as opposed to the 20 or 30 of Hollow Cure and Vampire Survivors. So it's also much easier to complete a run in a limited amount of time.
Yeah. Oh, neat. I might give that a go then, because it's just £3.99 over here, which is definitely impulse purchase territory.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I just I was really enjoying Hollow Cure, but I got tired of the same level, so I kind of stopped. I kind of wandered off Hollow Cure, and then I started looking for something else to play. Not realizing how expansively Vampire Survivors has grown also since I bought it. So I've also been coming back to that a lot. That's had some significant overhauls in terms of the pixel art's all been redone. All the characters have new sprites.
Oh, cool.
And they're much nicer than the original versions. It's been really cool. New weapons. There's a new character that's based on Bayonetta. So she shoots 4 guns in a diagonal cross pattern.
Awesome.
as her default. It's really cool. There's been a lot of really neat stuff added to that as well. So this genre continues to be interesting, and I'm really looking forward to when we start having them on consoles, so I can just enjoy them on my Switch in handheld mode.
Yes, I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet, but I guess a lot of these games are in early access. So I guess when one of them decides that their game is finished, they might consider a console port. But while they're still sort of actively developing, there's a downside of these, I guess, which is that these games are never finished. There's never a best time to play them because there's always new stuff being added, which on the one hand is cool, but on the other hand is a bit like, well, should I play this now, or should I play it in 6 months' time? Or
it's interesting, and it's a weird anomaly compared to some other, like the way AAA handles this kind of stuff that we're always decrying, right? Like the whole games of service thing.
Yeah, I mean, what we have in this case is not like this is not fixes that should have been in the game from the first place, and it's not. In most cases, it's not even a lack of stuff in the game to do that should have been in there from the first place. It's just they keep bolting on new stuff to it to make it a bigger and bigger game. And rather than doing that through DLC packs, they're just doing that through updates. Which I guess we should be praising.
Yeah, well, it's like it's what they do in the games as service sphere, right? New content, but unlike games as service sphere, which we often piss and moan about, you pay $60 to $70 for the game, and then you got to pay another $50 for the season pass, or $10 a piece for each expansion. These guys are giving us a $3 early access game with a ton of content, and then they're just drip feeding us new characters, new levels, new weapons and abilities for free after our $3 buy-in.
Yeah.
And this, my friend, is just another sterling example of why I love the indie sphere over any modern stuff.
And you know what? I bet they are making a comfortable income from that $3 game as well.
Yeah, because literally everyone I've ever met, I've told to buy that $3 game.
It's like, oh, it's $3. Yeah, sure, I'll give it a go. And then,
My friend, who is not a PC gamer, purchased a Steam Deck. And he was like, I know you're not much of a computer gamer either, but I know you have Steam and you curate all the little indie games and stuff. Yeah. He's like, what's the first game I should get on my Steam Deck? I'm like, oh, Vampire Survivors, hands down. The only reason I would consider a Steam Deck is for handheld Vampire Survivors at this point in time. So,
yeah,
good times.
Yeah, cool.
Word of mouth, a tremendous example of just the strength of word of mouth in the gaming community.
Yeah, it's always really strange to see that happen. There's just like certain games don't seem to have any particular like marketing and stuff, and yet they just suddenly explode in popularity for like the latest one is this Cult of the Lamb game that everyone's playing.
Oh, I can't wait to get that.
I haven't seen any marketing or promotion for that other than people going, you should play Cult of the Lamb, it's really good.
Yeah, oh, that looks so good. Yeah, I'm going to be pre-ordering the physical copy from Special Reserve next week.
Yeah.
I love Special Reserve.
I like them a lot, but their shipping is extortionate here, which is a problem that most of the limited press houses have got over, but Special Reserve haven't, unfortunately. So it's not very practical for me to order a lot of stuff from them, sadly. But
sure,
yeah, they do some great stuff. They do some great stuff though. So
not just in terms of quality of the game. You know, the games they put out are obviously usually great because it's just stuff Devolver publishes. They're just Devolver's publishing arm. But the literal quality of their releases.
Yes.
The boxes that they're, if you buy the Special Reserve version, most of their games now launch in either Special Reserve or like a standard retail style.
Yeah.
But if you get the Special Reserve version, you get this ridiculous like premium cardboard NES sized box with like that silky rubberized treatment on the cardboard.
Very nice.
And like usually a really beautiful like color instruction manual or art book. Individually numbered. It's a delight to get a Special Reserve game in the mail.
Yeah.
It feels like a genuine like special thing happening.
Yeah, there's several of those companies that are doing things like that now. So I know that premium edition games do a lot of retro editions where they sort of, I mean, you can buy it in just a standard Switch case as well, but they also do retro editions that are in sort of Super NES and NES style cardboard boxes.
Yeah. But even premium edition standard releases are like really premium. So
yes, because I mean they come with the manual and stuff as standard, don't they?
Yeah. So. Well, I just got Phenotopia and Cathedral for the Switch, and I just bought the standard editions of those, not like the special editions. And both of those came in a nice, thick, glossy slipcase with silver inlay text. Then you pulled that out, and the games themselves are in a faux NES cartridge slip sleeve.
Yeah.
And then they both had full color manuals. The manual specifically for Cathedral had like an embossed cover with silver inlay. Like they're serious about making really really nice, really premium editions. I don't have any interest in the game they're taking orders for right now, but I'm always keen to see what they've got coming next.
Yeah, definitely. Who was it that did Rival Megagun a while back?
Oh yeah, so that is
was that First Press Games?
Yeah, that's First Press, and they're weird because I got a ton of stuff on order from them, and they make Strictly Limited look like a jackrabbit of the industry. I've had stuff on order with First Press for a long time that I've never heard hide nor hair of. I've got the Natsuki Chronicles.
Yes.
On order with them, the Ginga Force on order with them, probably for over a year now.
Yeah.
Crimson Clover, I did with them, and one more thing. Oh, Mind Seas, I did with them, and just Rival Megagun's the only one I have, but they're in the same boat. They do these beautiful gold embossed slip covers that look like leather-bound books.
Yes, I was going to say they look like library books, don't they? It's lovely stuff. So
and you get a coin. You get a collector, like a metal collector's coin with every game. And they do their releases in like series, and they're numbered, kind of like the Evercade releases. And there's art. The art on the spines is actually meant to produce a picture if you put them all together next to each other.
Oh, cool.
I would never do that because I put all my games in alphabetical order. My OCD would never allow that. But it's neat. A lot of these companies are just kind of like distinguishing themselves just a little bit over some of the other bigger players. Especially weirdly now that like Limited Run is like owned by this like other corporate entity now.
Yes. Yeah, they're owned by Embracer, who are trying to own everyone in the industry from the look of things.
Yeah, that was a very strange announcement. I mean, I don't care either way. If they keep putting out games I want to own, I'll keep buying them, but I'm not one of those people who feels like it's an important investment of my time to bitch about limited run on the internet.
Yeah, I know.
Buy their products or don't get on with your life.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't love Unilever either, but I have to buy shampoo. So, you know.
Yeah, the one nice thing I saw that came out of the Embracer acquisition is that they sound very keen to do more stuff with the Carbon engine that they developed for Shantae. So hopefully that's going to mean more retro re-releases of stuff that has been hard to find for quite a while. So hopefully we'll see more of that. And the Carbon engine was really high quality emulation. So
I mean, we've been seeing a lot of that already. Like Limited Run's been championing that stuff.
Yeah,
we had that weird like that Bill and Ted NES collection. We had the Zombies Ate My Neighbors set. We had right now they're taking pre-orders for a SNES card of Rendering Ranger, which never came out in the West. But they're also going to do a Switch port of that after they're done selling the SNES card. So I'm holding out for the SNES card. I mean, I'm holding out for the Switch version. I'm not really interested in the SNES version. But it's been crazy how like they've been bringing a lot of this retro stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Good times.
Yes, very cool. All right, what else have I been doing? I have been playing a free-to-play game that doesn't suck.
Oh,
yes. I don't know if you've come across Tower of Fantasy before.
Is that the one that looks a bit like Phantasy Star?
It looks a bit like Phantasy Star crossed with Genshin Impact.
Yeah, I just mean the combat looks a lot like Phantasy Star. It's kind of like very fast-paced anime action.
Yes, yeah. It's really good. It's really good. I've been very impressed with it. I saw that a bunch of Niji-Sanji's VTubers had been playing it.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And so I hadn't actually got around to watching any of their streams, but I just seen that a lot of them had been playing it. So I decided to look into it to see what it was, because I initially assumed it was just like another gacha mobile game. But no, it's like a full-scale PC game. You can play it on mobile, but why would you ever want to play a game like this on mobile?
Oh, no, you're not going to buy one of those controller cradles for your mobile phone?
No, I'm not.
Oh, no.
But
I better call up Logitech and let them know.
Yeah, okay.
You're not interested.
I'm sure they'll be devastated. But anyway, I've been playing this on PC, and it's great. They've made a really nice effort with story. It looks great. It runs great. It's got an amazing character designer. That sort of has a lot of facial settings in particular that allow you to create a wide variety of different anime style characters. And you can sort of share your presets as well. So there's a bunch of like predefined presets that you can simply apply to your character straight away if you want. So there's stuff like this. There's a popular one is Raftalia from Rising of the Shield Hero, the sort of raccoon girl from that. There's one of Silvervale, which you'll be happy to hear about.
I love Silver.
Yeah, I think there's like people like Nyanas and stuff in there as well. But and like because people can easily share their creations in that. If you want to run around playing as Nyanas, you can do that. But the gameplay is really fun because it's an open world game. There is a linear main story to follow, but there's a very strong emphasis on exploration, which is something I really like in open world games. There's a lot of stuff to discover out in the wild, and you have sort of a map completion percentage that kind of encourages you to go off and do sort of collectathon things around the map rather than necessarily questing. So there's on each map there's a bunch of hidden supply pods you can find that are full of experience and treasure and stuff, and then there's what they call exploration points, which are various environmental elements that you can interact with in various ways, usually with various different elemental weapons. So for example, you might find a little rock that's covered in tar, and so you need a fire weapon to melt the tar off it and find out what's inside it and so on. Those usually reward you with these things called nucleuses, which are what you use to draw from the gacha in it. And so you can very easily get a bunch of good weapons and stuff without paying or anything. The kind of progression and leveling system is probably overcomplicated because it is a gacha game at heart, and there are lots of different gachas to draw from and things to attach to weapons and stuff. But I've not even come near needing to pay for anything at this point because it's so generous with the stuff that if you just play the game and you engage with this exploration side of things in particular, it just gives you so much stuff that you can have your character in a really good state for doing both the single player stuff, which is the majority of the game, and there is also optional multiplayer stuff you can do as well. So there's things like world bosses that you can go and cooperate with other people who are running around the world, or there's
like Xenoblade X.
Kind of, yeah. Except rather than going into like an instance encounter, they're just there in the world. So the open world is kind of like an MMO. So you'll run into people who are running around the same thing. You're playing solo, but you'll see other people running around doing stuff, and you can go and help them out if you want to.
Sure.
And to fight a world boss together, you just sort of show up to where this boss is, and everyone fights it all together. And then there's a chest there that's instance for everyone, so everyone can get some loot out of it and so on. So it's kind of a bit like the fates in Final Fantasy XIV.
Okay.
But yeah, that works really well. And then there's a lot of instance multiplayer stuff as well. So there's sort of fairly conventional dungeon runs. And then there's a sort of survival mode type thing where you just beat off hordes of enemies. Not beat them off, but you know what I mean. Where you just fight hordes of enemies with up to 3 other players. There's supposed to be raids and stuff later on as well, but I haven't got far enough to see that. But yeah, just the single player experience of it is really, really enjoyable. It looks lovely. The combat is really nice and fluid and action based, like you say, a bit like Fantasy Star. It takes, as you would expect from a game that looks like this, it takes a lot of cues from Breath of the Wild as well. So you've got the mechanic from Breath of the Wild where you can climb anything. And very early in the game you get a relic that allows you to glide down from things. And you get lots of sort of Zelda-like items as you progress through the story as well. So you get a thing that allows you to summon a pillar up from the ground that will let you get to higher places. There's a thing that sort of temporarily shifts the gravity in your area, so you can move heavy things out of the way. So there's lots of stuff beyond just hacking and slashing through monsters, and it's really fun. It's really fun. I've been very impressed with it.
All right. Well, how does the multiplayer work? Would we be able to play this together?
It is stratified by region, unfortunately. So unless you join a European server, which I guess you could, there's no restrictions on it. Yeah, it's server based. So you just pick a server, and yeah, you can play together. And then
I have a VPN, so even if they try to restrict me, I can just put it on.
Yeah, I don't think there's any restrictions in place because it just asks you what server you want to play on and what region you want to play in when you start. So if you wanted to give it a go, I mean, like I say, it's free, so no risk. And if nothing else, you'll probably get a kick out of the character creator. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say mainly just I was just looking at some screenshots, and the really crisp cel-shaded character and enemy art is really my jam for sure. But just like Genshin Impact and anything else, I look at this and I'm like, I mean, I think I'll probably check it out just to see what it's all about, but I won't put that much time into it because I have premium games that I paid for.
Yeah,
that I
exactly.
Can put that time into. So like, I wish it was a premium game.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like it's hard.
What I found appealing about this is that it's a very good lunch break game.
Oh sure.
So the fact that so much of it is single player, and there's so much emphasis on this exploration angle, it's a game that you can boot up for half an hour at lunchtime, go and find some stuff out in the open world, and you've had a rewarding experience. It's generous enough with the rewards that you feel like you spent some worthwhile time with the game. You've got something out of it. But you don't have to commit hours and hours to it, which is great.
Sure, sure. That makes perfect sense.
So yeah, I'd recommend at least giving it a go. And if you don't dig it, just uninstall it, and you haven't lost anything. So
yeah, just message me the info on what server and whatever you're on, and I'll
do.
Join up.
We'll do. We'll do.
Yeah, that's a good segue for me to talk about my current lunch break game du jour, which is Siralim 2.
Oh yes.
So, Siralim is a scrappy little indie game, which, I don't know, some people might be tempted to compare it to Pokemon. I don't think that's an apt comparison. It's if you want to get technical, it's more like Dragon Quest Monsters crossed with Disgaea. So, like, imagine a Shin Megami Tensei or Dragon Quest Monsters RPG where you're breeding monsters, but just with the infinite giant number possibilities of a Nipponichi strategy game. So I don't know how many people work at Thylacine Studios. It's got to be like a single digit, or maybe 10, or maybe it's just one, or maybe it's just one guy. I don't know, but there is at this point 4 Siralim games. There's 1, 2, and 3, and then there is Siralim Ultimate, which you can get on Steam, which seems to be like kind of the best of all worlds, like all of them combined. But I have Siralim 2 on the Vita, so that's been lovely for me to enjoy on my lunch breaks. I've been enjoying Siralim 2 on the Vita so much that I did just order a copy of Siralim 3 on the PS4, so I could have a version of it to play on the television as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's about as bare bones as you can get. It feels like a very small indie game. I'm pretty sure it was made in RPG Maker or some kind of engine. The menus certainly have that like clean, tidy, no frills look, like it came from some kind of game maker. But it's a ton of fun. So imagine a monster collecting or dungeon crawling RPG, but all the dungeons are randomly generated. So you've got a hub world, which is your castle. The castle can be developed and built. So you invest in what they call construction rituals, and then as you explore the dungeons, you get points towards your construction rituals as you out of battles. So you're always unlocking new rooms and new features. You know, like, I'm like 13 hours into the game. I don't even have an item shop yet because I haven't built it. It's kind of cool. You can focus on the. You unlock the nursery, you unlock the stable, you can breed monsters. There's special breeding combinations that yield special results, or you can just breed a monster with any other monster to just yield a more powerful version of that same monster. So there's your monster's level, and then there's what's called gene strength. So like you can have like a level 10 sandworm plus 13. And the plus 13 is its gene strength. And the gene strength dictates basically its starting stats and rate of stat gain.
Okay.
So if you're the type of person like me who loves to grind and build a perfect party and like breed monsters and stuff, you can find a monster you really like, level it up to like level 20, and then go breed it, and then start it again at level 1 plus 13 or whatever the gene strength is, knowing that when it hits level 15, it's probably going to be about as strong as the level 21 was.
Right.
So there's a lot of emphasis to keep doing that. Above and beyond the fact that there's hundreds of monsters to do this with, and hundreds of floors of randomly generated dungeons to explore, you can also equip your monsters with artifacts, weapons, and armor. The weapons and armor become more powerful and gain additional skill slots as you use them. So you can also use resources you gather to add new skills and passive effects to the weapons and armor. No monsters have inherent abilities like spells and stuff, so you have to equip them with spell gems, which are limited to like their type, their element. So you can customize your monsters further by actually dictating their abilities with the spell gems you've found. That's all random. So like my level 10 team is not going to look like your level 10 team. You will have found different spell gems. You will have found different artifacts. It's a lot of fun to tinker with and to try to breed new monsters. And the only other thing that's really cool is the actual combat itself is very standard turn-based first-person affair, right? You just got your 6 monsters you're fighting on the screen. They always fit conveniently into a square. It feels very much like a Game Boy Color game in that respect. Yeah. But all monsters have a unique passive ability. Right. So it feels a bit like a card game in that respect. Okay. Because in the same way as you would if you were playing like Pokemon cards or Magic the Gathering, what you're really looking to do outside of just having the monsters you think are cool is finding the innate passive abilities that complement each other.
Yeah.
So for instance, one of my favorite monsters right now is called a wall giant. And a wall giant, his attack strength is irrelevant because his innate passive ability is that he does damage equal to a certain percentage of his total health points.
Oh, okay.
So like, I don't know, it's like 40% of his total health points or something. I don't remember what the number is. But then I found a monster in the life, the life, like, angel element group that just gives all characters in the group a passive 15% max health bonus.
Nice.
So if I stack 2 of those in my party, I'm giving the wall giant a 15% boost, then a secondary stacked 15% boost to his max health, which basically just makes him able to one-hit kill everything. So it's experimenting for stuff like that that can be really fun. The other thing that's really cool is it's one of those dungeon crawler kind of games where every battle is contained. So, like, if a character, like, unlike a normal RPG, like, alright, I ended the battle and 2 of my monsters have half health. On the map screen, they're going to have half health, and that's how I start the next battle, unless I use consumable items to heal them. In Siralim, every battle is contained. So after a battle, you're back to max health, max MP. Even monsters that were dead are revived immediately once the battle's complete. Yeah. So you have to treat every battle like a strategic opportunity. So that opens the door to all kinds of strategies that you wouldn't normally pursue in a standard RPG. So, like, a great example, I have a spell gem that's called Sudden Death, and it just kills one of my monsters instantly, and then does 25% of their max health to the entire enemy party.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So like, right now, I have a character who can poison the entire enemy group. So, like, a very viable way for me to beat an enemy encounter right now with my current party is to poison the entire enemy group, have my entire team defend for, like, 2 turns, and then do that sudden death on my wall giant. And then it just wipes the entire enemy party out with 1 spell.
Nice.
Like, so if you, like me, are the type of person who gains great joy in RPGs from finding unique ability and item combinations and pulling fun combos and almost feeling like you're breaking the game, Siralim is a really good time. And there's just never a feeling like there's wasted time, because even when you breed your monsters and they start back at level 1, you can go back to level 1 dungeons. Right. You can train them, or you can take them to your current, if you're level 20 dungeons, take your level 1 monster to a level 20 dungeon. Even if he dies in that battle, he's going to get the experience from it. And be revived for the next battle at, like, level 8 immediately. So there's not a whole lot in terms of, like, brick walls to prevent, like, the constant feeling of, like, positive progress and exploration within its systems. So, I mean, if you can get past the really bare bones, really amateur presentation of it, which I would argue is part of its charm.
Oh, definitely. It looks like a 90s DOS game, and that's great.
I'm just having a ton of fun with it, and like you said with Tower of Fantasy, it's just a perfect lunch break game, because you can play as much as you want, level up, get a few artifacts, you can save anywhere, and then just continue later. It's been a ton of fun, and I'm glad I kind of rediscovered it.
Oh, sounds great. And that was Siralim 2 you're playing, yeah?
Yeah, I'm playing Siralim 2 on the Vita, and then I also have 3 on the PS4, which I'll probably check out this weekend for the first time. My copy just arrived yesterday. And then, like I said, all of which are also available on the Steam, including Ultimate, which is kind of a bigger than even 1, 2, and 3. So
Thylacine Studios, if you're wondering, is 3 dudes, two of whom are freelancers.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So there you go.
I'm guessing one of them is music.
Yep. Yeah, there's the full-time guy is the designer and programmer. Then they've got a freelance artist and a freelance composer. Composer's name is Joshua Queen, if you want to look them up.
Yeah, it's and I can understand why one guy couldn't do all of this, because, like I said, despite the rather bare-bones presentation, there is so much going on in this game systemically.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, it's crazy. Like, sometimes my Vita actually struggles in the battles. Like, it'll hiccup and slow down during a turn-based game, because what's happening is that I have 6 monsters, the screen has 6 monsters, right? The enemy party has 6 monsters. So, like, there's probably the intense amount of calculations that are going on to reconcile every monster's unique ability plus what they just did in terms of their action that they chose. Make sure whatever, what order that stack of abilities resolves, to use Magic the Gathering terminology, and then calculate that outcome is incredible. It's a tremendous amount of computation. It's a hardcore RPG mechanic fans monster breeding paradise.
Sounds good to me. Me. So
that's Siralim, and I couldn't recommend it enough. I don't even think the games are expensive if you get the digital versions.
Let's have a look. Siralim Ultimate is £15.49 on Steam. The first Siralim is £7.19. Siralim 3 and Siralim 2 are both £11.39, or you can get a trilogy bundle for £23.98. Yeah. So yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all, considering the amount of game you've got there.
Yeah, much like this guy, these are infinite games. You could play these exponentially. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. Love them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, talking of infinite games, last thing I want to talk about today is Wizardry, the 5 Ordeals.
Oh, yeah!
Wizardry, the 5 Ordeals is a game that came out in 2006 originally. It was originally designed for Windows 98 machines, and for a long time they didn't update it to run on anything newer than Windows 98, even though it came out in 2006. But it's had a really dedicated community since then, because it's got the original release had a scenario editor with it. And so there was a very passionate community of people who were making new Wizardry adventures for this, and so they could make their own dungeons, they could add their own monsters, you could even tweak the rule set of the game to a certain degree as well. So a little while back, I think it was towards the end of last year, possibly, a re-release of this game came out on Steam. Mostly in Japanese. Some interface elements were in English, but the sort of story text and signposts and stuff that you find in the game were all in Japanese. But it did come out at the end of last year and was vaguely playable in English. Just this week, they have added full English support to the 5 official scenarios that are included with this game. It's basically now a full English release. It's still in early access at the moment because they're still working on the new version of the scenario editor. But it's fully playable. There's 5 scenarios to play here, which is probably several hundred hours of game by itself. You can still download something like 100 different scenarios from the old version, some of which are in English. If you like classic, and I mean classic, dungeon crawling, there is potentially the endless dungeon crawling on offer for you here. And make no mistake, this is very, very old school dungeon crawling in the traditional Wizardry sense. This is Wizardry from the period after it got taken over by the Japanese rights holders. So they're very keen to stress on the product page that this game is nothing to do with Wizardry 1 to 5. Or indeed 6, 7 and 8 presumably, but they specifically call out 1 to 5 for some reason. And in fact, they've said you are not allowed to remake Wizardry 1 to 5 using the scenario editor when it's released, because otherwise there will be big trouble. Consider yourself told. Basically, if you've not come across one of these Wizardry games before, what happens is you have a scenario to play. But the interesting thing is that if all of your party dies, that's not necessarily the end of this scenario, because you can just create some new characters, and you can go and retrieve the bodies of the previous characters and attempt to resurrect them and so on. So it's quite interesting in that you can sort of reset and save scum if you want to, but that kind of feels not in the spirit of things. Part of the fun of Wizardry is I guess there's some sort of crossover appeal with the way roguelikes do things, because you have to deal with the consequences of what happens, and there are often very bad consequences of things happening in Wizardry. So, for example, when I first started playing, I created a party of characters. I was all set to go down into the dungeon. I thought, right, here we go. I bought them some weapons. I forgot to equip them, for one thing. Went into the dungeon. One of them fell down a pit, immediately died. On the way back, another one got stabbed to death and died. I crawled back to the surface, having achieved absolutely nothing in the dungeon up until that point. Handed over some gold to resurrect one of the deceased members of my party. The resurrection process failed, and they promptly turned into a pile of ash. And so that's when I knew what I was in for the rest of this game. It's ridiculous.
So it's probably not a good idea to invest as much emotional weight as we have in your character. Yes, because the other thing you can do with this is it's set up so that you can create your own custom character art. There's like 100 slots for you to put in your own custom artwork for characters, and so I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could play as all of Hololive? So I created a party made up of Holomyth, so the 5 Holomyth members and Iris, because that fit nicely with the 6-member party. And then 2 of them immediately died within the first 10 minutes of me starting from playing. I thought I'm probably going to have to reconsider how I play this. So I found seemingly the optimal way to play in the early stages of the game, at least, is to create twice as many characters as you think you're going to need, because at some point your entire party is going to die and the other party is going to need to go and get them. That's wicked old school.
Yeah, so I also put all of Hollow Council in there, so I've now got like an army of VTubers ready to adventure at a moment's notice. And so if one of them falls, I can just replace them with another one. And if all of them fall, I just need to put Niji Sanji in there as well, and I'll be sorted.
So the character that turned into a pile of ash, are they just permadead, gone forever?
So what happens if they turn into a pile of ash? You can try and resurrect them one more time, and that can potentially work, but it can also fail. So if the pile of ash resurrection fails, then they are gone forever.
Okay.
So you have a second chance to bring them back, but yeah, if that fails, they're just gone.
Is it random, or are there things you can do to increase the likelihood of the success, or is it 100%?
I don't know. I don't know. There is a luck stat, and there is like a piety stat, so I don't know if those are anything to do with it.
I'm sure there's something, like if you have a priest in your party, or like something.
Yeah,
those
quite
games
possibly.
are all full of esoteric like stat relationships.
Yeah, definitely.
Part of their charm.
Yeah, definitely. And it depends on the scenario how mapping works. The one I'm playing at the moment, you need to map by hand, although there is a mage spell you unlock about level 4 or so that will show you the map that you've uncovered so far, but it doesn't keep it on screen at all times. So you either have to keep casting that spell or make a map on graph paper in an old school fashion. So which I've been very much enjoying doing, because there's something just fun about that.
I haven't done that in years. Probably last time I did that was, oh god, what's that dungeon crawler on the Genesis? Shining
in the Darkness.
Yeah.
Last time I did it was Fantasy Star 1 on the Game Boy Advance.
Oh yeah, you got to do it for that one too.
Yeah, definitely. So the more recent re-release of Fantasy Star 1 on Switch, they put an auto map in, but for the Game Boy Advance release, which is my first contact with the Phantasy Star series outside of Phantasy Star Online and Dreamcast, you have to map that one, because otherwise you will get very lost. But yeah, it's so much fun. It's so much fun because it's a game that is incredibly light on story and very heavy on mechanics, but that makes it a game that you can come back with some amazing war stories from, because it just wants to kill you so much. And you eventually get to a point where you climb over that initial difficulty wall and you start having some successes, and it just feels so good when you get there.
Yeah, that's sort of a good gritter's like that, and it's basically a good gritter is for guys like you and me with broken reflexes who can't play Dark Souls. Like it's our access to that feeling that people always talk about in Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like that, I mean, that's been around forever. And to a very certain extent, games like Wizardry and stuff played a huge role in the creation of Kingsfield, which of course played a huge role in the creation of Souls. So it's all tied together in terms of ethos and kind of gameplay, risk and reward systems.
Yeah, it's very much risk and reward and knowing your limits and pressing your luck. So one big adjustment that if you've never played a gritter before, one big adjustment that you need to make from what I would describe as more conventional RPGs these days, so like your typical Asian style RPG, one big adjustment is that you're not going to go into a dungeon and race all the way through from start to finish on your first attempt. What you are probably going to have to do is go into the dungeon, take a few steps, have a look around, get beaten up by a monster, and then run back crying to town several times before you are in any position to go any further than the entrance hall.
Or like, you get one potion. That potion maybe heals 20% of one character's HP. Yeah. You just weep in the corner.
Yeah. The other thing you got to bear in mind in Wizardry is that when you rest at the inn, it restores your spells for your priests and mages, but it doesn't heal you unless you pay for one of the more expensive rooms. So for healing, what you generally have to do is to drop into the dungeon, get your priest to cast some healing spells, then take them straight back to town to have a quick nap. Repeat the process several times. But the other thing you've got to bear in mind is that every time someone sleeps in Wizardry, they age slightly. Mm-hmm. And the more they age, once you pass 40, which makes me feel great, once you pass 40, your stats start to decline. And if you level up and your vitality drops below 3, then you die of old age. So there's that to bear in mind as well, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, it's like it's too much for me, but I really love and respect it. Like I just don't want to deal. I'm too into games where I can just infinitely make numbers go up with zero consequences, as I just described. Yes. So it's not for me, but I respect the legacy of the series so much.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
Without Wizardry, we wouldn't have so many of the games that I adore today, like Etrian Odyssey series. And
well, I mean, Wizardry and Ultima are the two games that are the reason we have most of the RPGs we have these days. So,
Dragon Quest,
the original Final Fantasy, top down though it was instead of first person gritter perspective, very inspired by those old dungeon crawlers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm very much enjoying that. It's definitely a game you have to be in the mood for, because obviously you need to get the graph paper out. You need to be mentally prepared for suffering. But yeah, like you say, I'm absolutely getting out of that game what people get from Dark Souls. So sort of the feeling of learning from your mistakes, of taking risks and sometimes them not paying off and you having to deal with the consequences. Because Wizardry is very rigorous about auto-saving. There's no manual save system in Wizardry. So if you lose a character, you have lost that character. They're gone. They are deleted from your save file. So you have to deal with these consequences, and that makes you play very, very differently. And I really like it. I appreciate it's not for everyone. As you say, it's not for you. And that's fine. But if you are in the mood for something that really makes you think differently to other types of games like this, then I highly recommend the 5 Ordeals. It's in a very good state now, and it's only going to get better as time goes on.
It seems, for me, I feel like although I wouldn't have that much fun playing it, the scenarios that it comes with, I, as kind of a natural dungeon master, would really enjoy just the scenario builder. Writing a story, developing characters, creating dungeons. I would love that. To me, that would be the game.
Yes.
So I'll keep a keen eye on when that's.
Yeah, definitely. So they are still working on the scenario editor at the moment, because what they've done with this remake is that they've ported this original 2006 version and put it in Unity, so it runs on modern systems.
Okay.
But the scenario editor obviously needs to be completely rebuilt to work with this new engine and the new way that it all works.
Sure. That makes sense.
So they're working on that at the moment. It's been in early access for a while already, and I think their aim was to keep it in early access for about a year and a half altogether. Let me just have a look at the product page. It should say. So, early access. Yeah, this game will be in early access for about a year and a half, depending on the editor service development status. That may make it take a little bit longer. And they will continue to add stuff to it after it's launched into its full version as well. And it came out in December of 2021. So yeah, we've probably still got a fair amount of time before that editor's going to be ready. But in the meantime, if you're up for the game it's got to offer, there is a lot of game there to enjoy as well. So, but yeah, check back in like a year or so, and yeah, you should be able to live out your dungeon master fantasies to your heart's content.
Oh, it sounds lovely.
Marvelous. All right, anything else you want to talk about today?
No, I think that's it. I've actually got a pal coming over tonight, and we're gonna kind of dig into our backlog pretty deeply. I recently received copies of Dungeon Munchies, River City Saga: Three Kingdoms. What else? I don't even know. I'm gonna mangle it. That latest Toho game that looks like a Castlevania game.
Oh yeah.
Something I can't pronounce. Scarlet Symphony.
Yeah. I know the one.
Yeah. So just and I recently just got Soul Hackers 2 as well.
Oh, nice.
So
cool.
Yeah, I'll have plenty of new stuff to talk about when we next liaise.
Great stuff. And yeah, that's it for me today as well. So. So to wrap up, as usual, would you like to remind people where they can find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. You can always buy my artwork at my website, which is ccaskieart.com, CCASKIE art.com, as well as be sure to follow on Instagram, ccaskieart, as well as my other Instagram for my toy and video game photography, Chris Buys Plastic.
Cool. And you can find my writing every day on ricedigital.co.uk, my back catalogue of stuff on MoeGamer.net, my YouTube videos at youtube.com/Pete Davison. And I'm also going to start doing some Twitch streaming as well this week. So probably going to be on Wednesday afternoon/evening UK time, because that's when my wife is doing Final Fantasy XIV raid, so I may as well occupy myself in the meantime. So keep an eye on the YouTube community tab and on my Twitter account for updates on that, or you can just follow my Twitch page at twitch.tv/PJE Davison. You can follow me over there, and that'll give you notifications of when I'm going live, and I'll try and put schedules and stuff on there as well if and when I establish one. It's probably going to be primarily retro stuff over there, but I'm not ruling out modern stuff as and when it tickles my fancy or as people want to see stuff. So come and join me for some friendly gaming chat when you feel like it. So it just remains for me to say, as always, thank you very much for watching and or listening, and we'll see you again next time.